After 26 years of marriage, we've learned this the hard way. Just because we love each other doesn't mean we always understand each other. Communication doesn't come naturally. It comes with practice, patience, and a whole lot of grace. In today's episode, we're unpacking why learning to talk and listen well is one of the most important things you can do for your marriage.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Imperfectly Married, the podcast.
Where real talk meets real marriage.
We're Michael and Heather.
26 years in and still figuring it out.
No filters, no fluff.
Just real love.
Real life.
And a whole lot of grace.
Amen.
Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. We have a not interesting subject today, but it's one that I think is one of the most important ones in marriage, and it's the one that has the potential for failure the most often, especially when you misunderstand it. And it's all about the power of communication. Now, I mean, let's be honest, right away, when you say communication, you've heard it before. People, you just need to communicate, learn how to communicate, and you're like, okay, well, this communication isn't working, right? You know what I mean? So communication across the board. But in marriage itself, if you could do anything well, I'd have to say communication is gonna be right there at the top, because from that spills over into a lot of things.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. Communication between your spouse, communication with your kids, your friends, relationships across the board. If you can nail communication, then you've accomplished a lot. And that's why we've titled The Power, because there is power communication. There's power in the words that you say. There's power in everything when it comes to communication. So again, I got some subjects I'm going to raise up to the surface, and I just want to talk about them because I think these are those that come up in marriage often, but with understanding that these are certain parts of communication, I think it'll help when you know it's there, like the reality. Sometimes when you have an awareness or knowledge about things in relationships and marriage, it helps you to navigate them because now you know they're there. Oh, I didn't know I had a communication problem. Why don't you understand me? Well, like the first one is communication builds understanding. So you and I come from different places. When spouses come together, they come from different backgrounds. They come from different environments, contexts, cultures. Communication, when done well, creates understanding because you and I look at the world, though we're close and intimate, you and I look at the world differently. And unless we communicate, it's difficult for us to understand how each other is seeing it. You and I can see something completely and totally different. And if we don't communicate, I could then get frustrated because I'm looking at something saying, oh, I see it this way. Of course she sees it that way. And then you're acting in a different way. But when we don't communicate, we're totally off the rails already.
Yeah, I think we can even put the Enneagram title on this one.
Absolutely.
Because what happens a lot of the times is, with the Enneagram, it's like there's 9 basic types of personalities, and what they usually say is it's like you're putting on a different pair of glasses with every single type. And so you may see things through a red lens, and I may see things through a yellow lens, and those flavor the way that you respond, the way you react, the way you just see and feel through experiences and through the world and through marriage. I see things way differently than you do. Yeah. And
hey, we're all entitled to be wrong.
Okay. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, next episode.
Through communication.
Yeah.
But like those types of things help us understand each other also and have a different perspective on a situation or a scenario.
And that's the important part, is a different perspective, because that's the beauty of marriage. You come together from different places, and now your perspective colors mine colors yours, because the point isn't to change our lens, because quite frankly, you can't. It is to color. It is to help. It is to maybe fill in. And so, but without understanding that communication has the purpose of creating understanding, if you don't know that, then it's instant frustration, which is unnecessary when you understand that communication helps you understand each other, right? And I would say true connection isn't about agreement, right? It's about us coming together and understanding each other's expectations. Oh man, we can have a whole episode on
just expectations.
How about unsaid and unmet? Oh my gosh, that alone. Okay, we'll move on because you just can't, right? But that is one of the first things that I think is important to understand about communication is it creates understanding, and that's one of the purposes with it. One of the other things, though, is poor communication breeds assumptions. So you take an example where we're not communicating. We'll go back to the first example. I assume you see it the same way that I do. And so I'm just going to operate as if the thing I'm seeing, and then now, since I'm not talking to you, now I have frustration. I assume you're on the same page. Why don't you? What are you doing? What's going on? And so the lack or poor is going to create these a whole narrative simply because you and I aren't communicating. Like coming out like what, you or me assuming that you're going to do the thing, you don't do the thing, and then now I'm resentful, I'm frustrated, I'm moping around the house, and you have no idea because I haven't even told you anything.
Yeah, I think most of the time when someone is giving the other the silent treatment, like the silent
That's
treatment. That's
communicating, I'll tell you.
No, it communicates, but the unfortunate part of that silence is we then create that narrative, that story on why they're upset or what the problem is or well, they're just mean or they're just being a jerk. It's like we then get defensive, and because of the story that we've created, and most of the time the story is not correct.
90% of the time that's accurate.
And so if we're looking at like the motivation to bring understanding, like the first one that you were talking about, if the goal is to bring understanding, then the silence brings in a false narrative, which is not even close to understanding. And the understanding should be met with compassion and a desire to repair or a desire to fix. But so many times the silence brings in things that are just not right and not true. And I think that so many times the silence is where the enemy creates the biggest story.
Well, yeah, because you're left to your own devices, right? You're left to your own story, right? And so the story you create is all through your filter and how you see it. And since you haven't been communicating, it's now how you color the world. And so, I mean, I can sympathize with this. I do have a default of going silent when I am frustrated or because I don't want to have a conflict, right? Sometimes to avoid conflict, you just kind of be silent, but that is conflict. That is creating conflict. And it's kind of the easy way out, but it's the thing that brings the most damage. It's actually more brave to check in. Hey, and it's hard. I mean, because you need a soft repair. You need like a soft start. Like, hey, I noticed that blah, 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 blah. Kind of come in kind of that way. But the answer can't be no communication. Right. So this is the decision you have. You either step out in love and desire to choose your spouse and connect and say, hey, I noticed that this, or you choose silence. But when you choose silence, you have to know what you're choosing is they are creating a story. You are creating a story. And now there's assumptions everywhere, and take the whole assumptions away, all the way through, and you end up at a place that one is so much worse. Sometimes we think that the pain of the starting a conversation is the worst pain than just letting it go. That is well,
But
I won't
it's
say never.
pride. It's pride all the time. I don't even think that anyone's sitting back going, "Oh, this is so painful." It's dying to yourself. It's being like choosing the other one when you think you're right and entitled. It's like it's the pride that gets us every single time, because it's like, nope, I'm right and I'm justified in my anger.
And I'm going to punish you by being silent.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've done a lot is we've challenged ourselves together when we feel like someone in our life is being silent, but also within our relationship, if one of us is being silent, is to step back, and we always ask ourselves, what are the facts?
Hugely helpful.
Remembering what the facts are, not the assumption, not the story that we've created, but what are the facts? So, you didn't take out the trash and I'm really angry out at it, and all the things. Well, now I can say, well, he didn't take out the trash because he never sees me and he never does anything that I ask him to do. He's doing it because he's trying to punish me for, something. And it's like, that's the new story, but it's like, what is the fact? The fact is he just didn't take out the trash.
The alarm went off, or you forgot.
Yeah.
Right. Completely different. And what solves that is a simple, hey, I noticed something small, just to check in. And I don't want to minimize the fact that could be hard, because sometimes that's hard.
It's always hard because we're dealing with ourselves, and we're dealing with our pride. We're dealing with the humanity, the human part, the flesh part of us just wants to be right, wants to be entitled, wants to stick it and just be like, no, like everyone else is wrong. I'm right. I'm the best. Everyone else sucks.
You know what? Often that's true. No, I don't want to say that. Okay. But true. No, absolutely not. But what about tone and timing? Tone and timing matter. Let's be honest. You're not talking. Are you? Is your mic off? Are you muted? Tone and timing matter. They do, right? Your delivery. Oh no. Okay. Yeah. I'm just reading. Your delivery often determines whether your spouse hears your heart or just your words. Right.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. May have to cut this whole section. Anyway, no, but it does matter. Yeah. So timing, right? Hey. I know I've done this before. I want to talk, which is weird because I'm not a talker. Mm-hmm. But in conflict, I want to talk because I want to get to the root and figure it out. And because I need peace. I need peace. So much so that let's talk at the most inopportune times. I can't discuss that. So timing matters. And that's something that I have to, for me, for somebody like me, that's just we need to talk about this now. It is an intentionality on my part to say, just the best thing for us, again, it's choosing the other person. It's choosing your spouse. The best thing for us is to choose a time where other external factors or situation or context is not going to affect a discussion that could be difficult or lead to conflict. But timing absolutely matters.
I think the reason I was giving you a hard time in the beginning is because we probably had one of our most difficult conflicts last week, and it was a week ago today. Yeah. And a lot of it was based off of poor timing, not feeling heard, and it was the tone. It was all of those things. And what happened was our communication ended up imploding because all of those situations were just off.
Misfiring.
It was misfiring, and we were just passing each other. Like it was bad, to so much so that we needed space and we needed time just to process and like a timeout. And normally we don't need timeouts, and like we don't usually we don't blow up like we did last week. But communication was at the core
we were trying to communicate
of our conflict,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
but we were communicating
poorly. Yeah.
and we weren't actually listening to each other because we were so concerned about all of these external factors
Absolutely.
that weren't mattering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that so much of the time in conflict, sometimes you can be communicating about one thing, but the reality is that you may be talking words about the situation, but the reality is that you really need to be communicating about something else. And because there's something else different going on that's more deep and more rooted than the actual conflict. So I would say that when you're met with the fiery like emotions and all of that kind of stuff, taking a time out and then really sitting back and saying, okay, so what are the real issues? Because in our conflict, we found out that it's like what our conflict was based around was actually something that had happened years ago. Totally. And that was the core and of unresolved issues.
How your past affects your marriage today. Right?
Exactly.
Which brought it completely forward, right? Which was good that it came up, but in the midst of something like that, with tone, timing, there's these certain pillars that you shouldn't have a conversation in. You're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, or you're tired. Like those things.
And it was yes.
Yeah. And we hit all of them, right? Like there are certain times this is where timing doesn't work. Like it doesn't work. You shouldn't. And I'm a forcer of conversation. So I'm like, let's get over it. Like, let's do it. And so we learned a lot from that, even with, and this was us trying to communicate. This was us trying. Can we bring training and trying into? I don't know, but us wanting to communicate better in the future when conflict comes up, where we were trying to learn from each other, which is important. Like, hey, if this comes up, how can I? What should I say? What's a better way to approach this? And that's where we then go back to the beginning. We understand each other and how we receive, but also knowing in the knowledge that the way something is said and when something is said does affect in the moments. And sometimes you just need to use the halt method, which is let's just hold on and time out. We just need to be done. Also now taking that conflict is a communication skill, not a red flag. You know that there are people, I think maybe it's natural, have a total fear of conflict and avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
That conflict is a bad thing. Now, conflict makes us absolutely uncomfortable. Absolutely uncomfortable. I don't thrive in conflict. It doesn't necessarily bother me unless it's between me and you. That kind of conflict bothers me. But, and this is one thing, you go back to our last week, we had conflict. In my mind, I go worst case scenario, red flag, oh my gosh, what's happening, all this other kind of stuff, where conflict is natural and it will always be happening, but it's our response to conflict which can make it a healthy thing and not a scary thing.
Yeah. I mean, conflict doesn't always have to be bad. And I would say that healthy conflict is great because it means that neither one of you are just always in the surrender mode. I think when you stop having conflict, I
The other's
would
been giving up all the time.
exactly. Yes. And so there's moments of I would even say that there's been times in our marriage that one of us is kind of like in that like give up mode or just like the surrender constantly like okay, yep.
Now, do you think there's a difference between give up and I'm going to lay this one down for the benefit of our relationship, assuming that it's a heartfelt, I'm not going to die on this hill and I'm going to take an under. Do you think there's health in that, or is it no? You got to take this all the way to the end so that you can check your mark.
I think it's all the motivation of the heart. So if your motivation is to repair and to like move forward in action, then absolutely it's completely fine. But if you're just sure, fine, whatever, yes, yep, totally wrong.
The lay down, give up, throw your hands up.
Yeah, that's not helping, and that's not fostering it's not fostering intimacy. So if I'm going to lay something down, it's going to be with intention, and it's going to be with a repair somewhere in there.
Because conflict, I love that you say that, because conflict can deepen intimacy when it's used to uncover needs and maybe fears and not to assign blame, right? There's safety in like, hey, there's this, but these things rise up and now you can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Healthy conflict means you've invested time to engage and not detached from engagement, right? And actually, so as a result, your conflict has created more strength in your marriage. Now, I would say, though the most conflict we had was last week, I walked away with some meaningful, I wish I would have got there differently in other ways, but I walked away with meaningful things that helped me grow and helped me see things about myself that I thought were right. Honestly, I wasn't being ignorant. I really thought it was right. But then seen through a different lens of, oh my goodness, like looking at you like, oh my gosh, I was way off. Like that's not how we're going to get there. I convinced myself with my own narrative that this pathway is going to result in healthy conversation and get us to a place that's good. But as a result of kind of what we went through, it helped me, and it was hard conflict, it helped me to reevaluate what I thought is good and right in conflict and how I can not no give up, no lay down, but in a healthy way try to understand, and then from that understanding gain a more of a deeper connection with you and understanding of you.
Right.
And then alternatively the other way of you understanding me, but that isn't a bad thing just because we had conflict.
Right. And what I took away from our conflict the most was that I had some unresolved anger and disappointment within some of our own life circumstances that had happened 5 years ago. And what happened in that moment? So the conflict happened, but my reaction was it didn't match the conflict.
That was wild.
It was
When we both looked back on it, it was like, oh my gosh, like
it
what?
was crazy. And what it was is that what we had experienced was I would say the Webster's definition of a trigger.
Yeah,
like something happened and I was instantly triggered. And that trigger changed something in me to where it was like Jekyll and Hyde. And my response was totally out of line and not in parallel with who I am. And it was very interesting because what was going on had nothing to do with the original conflict, and it had everything to do with 5 years ago when, I mean, the reality is that when we closed our church and the disappointment that I had felt in the closing of our church and the hurt and the pain of that decision, because I felt that as though it's like I was silenced and that it's like I wasn't heard and that it's like I didn't have a voice.
And that was a lack of, I mean, we go back to
It was
that.
a lack of
It was a lack of
communication.
communication, right?
Yeah.
There was no communication.
Right.
And to give the viewers some insight, I made the decision on my own to close our church. I had left that morning, came back and said, we're done. There was no, and that's not how we operate. We don't operate like that. We have this thing in our marriage. If we both don't agree, we don't do it. That's the one time in our marriage that changed, and that was a significant hit. Yeah. And with good, honest, authentic, upfront, not afraid of conflict communication, we would have been able to work through that. Mm-hmm. Take that moment, even take it farther now. There is a lack of communication of the hurt. There was maybe a lack of understanding, well, definitely a lack of understanding on my part, all connecting back to communication. Mm-hmm. I think back again last week to our moment. What could have solved that? What could we have done to, I look back on that and said, definitely, again, could just take a break. Mm-hmm. Just take a break. It's okay that people are hurt. It's okay that there's a strong reaction, but just learn from, okay, let's hold on. Because we want to communicate. So there was a desire to communicate, which always have the desire to communicate, but just be okay with having to make changes, it not always having to be the way you want it, because that's difficult too, especially when you're angry, hungry, tired, whatever the things, right? All the things, is trying to compromise on how and when and why you want to communicate. Mm-hmm. Again, keep choosing each other. Now, it's very difficult in the midst of anger and frustration and all the things, but keep choosing each other, even to the place of, hey, let's communicate when we're both at a place of having a good conversation.
I think the beautiful part of our conflict was that we didn't come back immediately. I wouldn't even say that it's like we had a really deep and like restorative conversation until the next day.
Yeah. Halfway through the next day, I think.
Yeah. But I feel like what the beautiful part of that is that it gave time, it gave space, and we still chose each other. And we chose to come back and be like, okay, like this is why that hurt. That's why it was so intense. And I actually felt like it was really healing, and it allowed you to see my own pain and my journey at the intensity that it was. And then there was a deeper intimacy because we were able to share those parts of each other in just such a real and authentic way, and come back with understanding and with like, hey, I think I looked over at you because we work side by side next to each other, different companies, but we just are lucky enough to work remotely. And I looked over at him and I go, hey, sorry, I was crazy yesterday. Yeah. And we just kind of laughed at each other. But it was one of those moments that it's like we both needed, because it's like I was acknowledging that it's like, oh, hey, like that behavior is like not okay. And that's not who I want to be. But it was that intense. So,
and time and space is okay.
Time and space is,
and that's something,
always
and that's
okay.
something that I have to learn, that I would encourage our viewers. Time and space is okay. That's not abandoning. Mm-hmm. It's giving. Sometimes we just need time to process, to rationalize, to become reasonable, to think of the facts, not the feelings. Mm-hmm. Not that feelings are invalid, not saying that, but facts help inform feeling to make them reasonable, and you will. So that's not a bad thing. Like time and space, that's good. That's the HALT method. Hold on, let's just get some time. So those are all good things. What about the nonverbals, right? The nonverbals.
I don't like talking about the nonverbals because I give nonverbals.
Well, yeah, but I'm a more nonverbal. Remember, in the beginning of our marriage, so at the beginning, I was huge on nonverbals. My face gives away everything I am feeling. It truly does. I mean,
Yeah.
it just does. And so I know that I've had to work on, maybe just train myself on my face muscles and like look in the mirror and try to do that. But it's knowing that I am communicating. I don't have to be using words. I am communicating. And a simple thing of just like having your phone in your hand. Yeah. Like this is communicating that you're not important, right? I'm more concerned with this, right? Or other things, but being aware. But if you're not aware that your body is communicating, then because it's not like the other person's always going to point out, why is your hip like that? Why are you standing like that? Why are you, but you are communicating. And so it's also important to have yourself open, practice like self-awareness on how you look. I know even recording, you're just like, why do you look so angry? And I'm like, but it is true.
So sometimes, like if I've said something that's like more harsh, like in our relationship, I'll say it in the mirror so I can see what my face looked like.
Oh, I've done that and it scared me. No, honestly, I've done that because you've said that. You've said that like, do you see your face when you say that?
Yeah.
And so I've done the same thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, such a jerk face. Like, oh my goodness. So, but the encouragement here
Be
is
aware.
absolutely be aware, because you could communicate something very good with your body and it directs your conversation in a different way because your body is communicating so much more. And I would have to say that one of the biggest things in communication is regular check-ins with each other. Mm-hmm. Check in to see where you're at. Our most recent episode last week would have maybe not gone to that place if I would have been intentional on check-ins on certain things that I know have been painful, hurt, or if we just had...
You mean our conflict that we had last week?
Yeah. If I had checked in on that, or I know one thing that you've challenged me with before is asking, why don't you ask me how we're doing? And it's always a scary one for me because I'm scared of what I'm going to hear, right? Because I don't want to be known as a failure. I don't want to know that I'm doing something wrong. But
Because you assume it's wrong.
Right. And that's my own thing that I need to walk through. And, that's a great point. But that is something to encourage our listeners in, is just check in with your spouse. Check in. It's a good thing. That is a healthy thing to see where they're at. How are you? How are you doing? But meaningful, just, not just the normal, whatever, but check in. Hey, are you how you doing? Your humanness. How are you doing as a human?
I think we never want to assume that our spouse is always going to be divulging all things to us all times.
Great point.
So doing those check-ins allow a level of even our spouses to go out of autopilot and say, oh, actually, I want to actually answer authentically and be like, how am I? Oh, actually, I'm feeling really stressed and really overwhelmed, or this happened at work, or I'm having this conflict with a friend. Like all these types of things, just never assume that you have your spouse figured out, because I can say that
With confidence.
I think we have surprised each other on more occasions than not.
In 6 months, we've done that. Just like, okay, absolutely. There's always something new to learn, and you learn those things with communication. And what's interesting about this is that regular check-ins, they prevent major blow-ups. Little conversations now potentially help you avoid the major big confrontation later.
So good.
Right? Yeah. I mean, because that is the truth. Just a little bit of, hey, what about the thing? Just that easy of a conversation could do that. And there's an encouragement, and I'm encouraging myself, of like, you don't need to be scared of that, because it ends. If I believe the things that I'm saying and the power of communication can build up in me these words, then I need not be fearful of, hey, how are we doing? Like, how is this thing, right? And because literally no matter how long you've been married, and we've been married for 26, together for 30, you never outgrow how to communicate and learning how to communicate to the other. And communication isn't a known thing already. You grow and learn how to communicate together, right? It's not just, I'm just a perfect communicator, right?
I don't think you fall into communication. You again have to be intentional. You have to like go after it because you care about the person. When you care about the person, you want to build relationship with it. It's even like your relationship with the Lord. I would say that it's like you have to pursue communication. Like we have to pursue those relationships that are most meaningful in our life.
And we've been saying this a lot in our episodes, is it's progress, not perfection. It's not about having perfect communication.
No.
It's about showing up. It's about
Just
putting
doing it.
forth effort. It's about staying connected, staying curious, and being committed to understanding each other.
And it's going to be messy and it's not going to be perfect. And that's okay, because what relationship is, because at the foundation of every relationship is the core of communication. You can't have a healthy relationship, whether it's work, friends, whatever, without healthy communication. You just can't.
Absolutely can't. And that's why there's power in communication. Right?
Absolutely.
100%. You're a good communicator, honey. Oh, she just scowled at me. Oh, geez. You just communicated something with your body.
Yeah, I did a nonverbal.
Oh, that was absolutely nonverbal. Friends, communicate. Communicate. Keep showing up for you. Keep showing up for your spouse. Keep fighting. Keep together. We're going to see you next time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thanks for spending time with us today on Imperfectly Married.
We hope something in today's episode encouraged you or gave you a fresh perspective.
If it did, share it with a friend, leave a review, or connect with us on our social platforms.
Remember, no marriage is perfect.
But yours is worth fighting for.
See you next time.